Hi all, welcome to my channel, welcome to my world. This is the world of Wayne. Today, something different for you. We have got a podcast for you. Now, if you don't know, myself and Dave Howell from Tyrell Models, we do podcasts pretty much as often as we can called the Scale Model World Podcast. And there is some previous podcasts up in this link here and you'll be able to listen to them. Now today is an absolute brilliant one. We get to talk to James Franks from Agora Models, and James tells us all about the creation of Agora Models, and most importantly tells us all about how a model goes from inception in the brain to us building it on the workstation. I've been wanting to know this for ages. You are going to be riveted to this podcast. Now, just another thing, if you want to get in touch with us, or you want some suggestions for the podcast, or you want to answer any opinions to what you've heard in the podcast, once again, I have put all our email addresses down the bottom there, and you can actually interact with us, and we'll make sure that gets heard on the podcast. But get your model out, sit back, close your eyes, and listen to us as we talk to James Franks from Agora Models.
Well, welcome to the Scale Model World podcast with your co-host, David Howell from Tyrell Models and Wayne Green from the World of Wayne. Oh, hi, Wayne.
Hello, everybody. The Scale Model World podcast.
Well, again, thanks for joining us, everyone, for this latest episode. So we're up to episode 5. So that's an interesting number, I guess. We're sort of cracking on with these. What I would say to everyone, as I always do at the beginning of these, is please do get in touch. I think the audience at the moment have been kind of quiet. They haven't been doing that, and I would really encourage you to come back to us with any questions or queries, really about anything about related to model making. Hasn't got to be just part working. It could be plastic model kits as well, anything that's related, and we will endeavour to come back with you with a response in a future episode. As this is really is a podcast for everyone, isn't it? It's not just just for us to have a natter about model making. It's absolutely for you guys who are listening in the community, and you can find contact details across both of our websites and our channels. So do get in touch with us if you do have any questions and queries. Now, in this episode, we do have an interesting special guest, which we will talk about in a little bit. It's none other than James Franks, the CEO of Agora Models, who's going to be talking to us a little bit later on. But before we do that, I guess we used to have a little bit of a preamble about what we've been doing. So what have you been up to this week, Wayne?
Well, I have just finished the Ecto 1, which I'm very happy to have finished because it was the longest build that's ever been on the channel. I think it was clocking in 3 to 4 years. It was taking up so much room in my workshop, which I haven't got. So now I've got that freed up. I can actually walk around, which is brilliant. I can actually use my paint station, which is even better as well. And I've been preparing some new models that I'm building. Namely, I'm building Maximilian from the Black Hole. I'm doing that with my 3D printer. From Cosmic Scale Models, I've got the Eagle 5, Spaceballs Eagle 5, which I'm going to be building. So I've kind of like diversed a little bit this week from the part work and the build up side models to the actual kit and garage kit models. So it's quite an interesting time.
How do you feel about that when you you finished Ecto? Was it sort of sigh of relief? What are your feelings when you finish one of those? Is it like, oh, that's over with, move to the next one, or do you take some time to admire the model and say, yeah, we put that together? Or does it depend on how the builds come? If it was a difficult build or an easy build? What kind of emotions go through your head when you finish one?
Well, sometimes it's really emotional. If you ever seen my Millennium Falcon build, the first one I ever did, I was in physical tears at the end of that, and that's mainly because of things that were going on in my life at the time of building that video. With the Ecto 1, obviously, it was a relief, and I did get I said at the end of the video, I got a bit of a lump in my throat because again, that took so long, so much has happened, and it was something that I didn't think was going to get finished. What with the demise of Eagle Moss, so I'm glad Fan Home brought it up. Sometimes there are passion products, passion projects as well. So that I'm happy that I'm doing it. And it is sad to see that that's now finished. But I do have that sort of intrepidation of what am I building next. So it's kind of excitement as well. But there's been very rare that I've had a model that I thought, oh, I'm glad that's finished with. Normally I get those sort of feelings when I've embarked on a wooden ship build.
Odd you actually mentioned ships because I was looking at that as a kind of subject for me. I've often looked at galleons and anything with rigging, that kind of thing. Because I do like the fiddly stuff. I do. It's a nightmare. it like does my head in. But in the end, I quite like that, and you can't get more fiddly than rigging on a galleon, for instance.
Mm.
I mean, I think there's something new from Airfix. They've got a new ship model, a 180 scale. Which I'll be looking at interestingly, but of course, ships and you, Wayne, you have one, and it's like it's like, are you kind of ignoring that, or are you keeping that under wraps? It's like, do I or don't I?
All I'm going to say, Dave, is that at the moment, bonfire night's coming up. So I don't want to start anything that close to bonfire night for obvious reasons, because my last two wooden ship efforts have ended in a bonfire.
You can't burn an unmade kit in a crate. You can't do that, can you? Can you do that?
I don't know. I don't know. The kit I've got here is the Sovereign of the Seas. So this is the
Yes.
the old
Yeah.
D'Agostini model space. I've had it for
Yeah.
a while. It was actually given to me by a viewer called John Russell. But
Mm.
because I've had so much in the workshop, and things
Yeah.
got on top of it, so I
Yeah.
forgot all about it, to be honest with you. And I
Oh,
found it
okay.
again in a storage tub, and I'm like, oh my god, I've got the full Sovereigns of the Seas. Now, do I start that? Because when you start a wooden ship, you're talking 5 to 6 years of your life easy, I reckon, because
Yeah,
it's not
that's
something
right.
you could just do in one go, especially when you're
Yeah.
waiting for planks to dry and the bending and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's going to
Yeah.
take years. And then you've got the rigging, which, from what I understand, I haven't experienced it myself, is a project in itself. It's a building in itself.
It's
So,
absolutely is.
but I
Yes,
mean, some of these
absolutely.
ships look, they're follies. I think they're follies. I think that's the way to look at them. That this is something that's going to be your legacy that you'll be passing on to kids when you build these things. So,
Well, I'm undecided because I do tend to flit around. I do, lots of different kinds of things, depending on what sort of takes my fancy. I mean, when people ask me, so well, I tend to be sci-fi and fantasy. That's kind of a specialism. But then I go and build a car, or or, I'll build some armor, or they go, oh, really? So when are you going to build your eagle? It's in the stash. It will get there, or whatever it is. And ships, of course, have sort of been on my radar for several years. I built them when I was a kid, but of course the kits were much simpler then. They really were. They were not at the level that we have today. So I may sort of segue into that when I have the sort of space in my schedule. But I always wanted to do that, sort of build, at least when I got back into the hobby, to build one of pretty much everything. A car, a bike, airplanes, a tank,
yeah,
just to get back into it. But you kind of, I guess, fall back into whatever attracts you when you were younger, or whatever you were build when you were there. And
yeah,
I was building anything that was sci-fi then, anything that was armor related, that kind of thing. Never built aero when I was a kid.
yeah,
They didn't really attract to me. But these days, I'm attracted to the detail which they pack in. The Corsair engines, for instance,
yeah.
amazing stuff you can do with all the 3D printed stuff. And of course, Airfix are doing this, going back into their archive, aren't they? I saw the old
That's
Airfix
right. Yeah.
hovercraft from the 60s, which I'm sure I built that as an original kit when it came out. I'm sure I did.
That's partly the reason why I'm building a lot of these black hole figurines, like
Yeah,
Vincent
yeah,
and Maximilian and even Bob, because
indeed,
it does
indeed.
remind me of my childhood. And I think there's such a place for retro at the moment. And for me, retro is like late 70s, early 80s. I know for others,
Indeed.
they love the Irwin Allen era, the 60s and 70s sort of
Of
thing. So
course, of
so
course.
it's and the Thunderbirds and all of the
Well, everyone always says that on your channel, don't they?
uh
It comes up regularly. What would you build? And it tends to be that, doesn't it?
yeah,
It is something like the Giants, or Voice at the Bottom of the
yeah,
Sea. All of this stuff was on when we were kids.
hmm
And some kits were made. They were absolutely. There is a black hole. There were several kits,
yeah.
but they aren't very detailed, and stupidly expensive these days. If you want an original one, I mean, really, they are
Yeah.
collectibles in their own right. I don't think I'd drop 300 quid on a kit and then build it if it was a
No.
vintage.
But I do wonder, is it the kit that's the money, or is it the box art? Because just like LPs and
Ooh,
stuff, people are really after
yeah,
the album covers rather than the records.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Airfix guys collect the box art. They really do,
Hmm.
because some of that is very, very. In fact, I think I've got a couple of coffee table books of
Wow.
Airfix box art, which were produced, and
Hmm.
it is amazing. Very, very impressive. So yeah, it may be absolutely right. it depends on what it is. I mean, for me, last week was not a great deal because I was busy with other things. But what I'm going to do over the weekend is finish the DeLorean. Hey, finally!
Oh wow, cool.
At least,
So
at
is that up to
least
130? Is that? Are you doing just
up
up
to
to the?
130.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm not going beyond that. I'm quite happy with the basic car. I'm not going to do anything else to it. I don't think. I'm quite happy with that as it is. So I'm very very happy to finish that and then find somewhere to display it, which would be not quite nice. But yeah, how long's that? 2+
Yeah.
years to finish that.
And that can be a fun old build after issue 91. Once you've got through that, it's just plain sailing. But yeah,
Well, I went back and looked at obviously your videos as sort of guidance. And when I was doing all of the the wire work on the
yeah,
interior, I kind of rattled through that, and I quite enjoyed it.
yeah.
Whereas you were literally having an absolute nightmare to try and get this thing through. But I found it quite cathartic actually, fiddling with all these wires etc, trying in the right place. But I kind of like that. I kind of like the fiddlier the better.
Yeah.
Or some spring pinging off everywhere every 5 minutes.
I think back then when I did that issue 48 that you're on about with the wires was because I had acknowledged to myself that I'm getting older and my eyesight isn't what it is. So since then, obviously, I've invested in magnifying glasses, and that enables me to actually see. So I'm hoping it will be as therapeutic as you've had it with your experience.
Absolutely, yeah, because that's right. Because I built that with a LED 4 times magnification. And all of that, and obviously my specs on, so I didn't have to sort of worry about seeing stuff because you're right. And I've realised that you can't see it, you can't build it, guys. So you have to, it's kind of fundamental. If it was, you have to be able to see it. So lots of light and lots of magnification. I mean, I build 1/35th scale figures, so trying to paint 1/35th scale faces requires magnification. So you have to do all that. It's absolutely essential. So that's kind of the weekend. I think by the time we get to sort of Monday, I'll have the DeLorean finished, and that's kind of what's next. Because I've been doing Tumblr in bits as it's come, and I've obviously I think I've got to the next pack of RoboCop. Yeah, that's here. But I've got pretty much everything for Kit.
Wow.
So that might be next.
Yeah.
I mean, jumping ahead a little bit, we were speaking to someone else in the next episode, and he was talking about building stuff in stages, like having lots of stages together, and then doing the whole thing, almost like a complete kit, so you don't have to wait. But I didn't do that with Kit. I did it with Kit because I didn't want the experience of having to take it apart and put a mod in.
Yeah.
Because I learned that from the DeLorean, and I think I think that's one of your advices. If you are going to mod something, try and get the mods first before you build stuff. Otherwise, with say the DeLorean, you'd be taking it apart every 5 minutes.
Yeah,
to put a new mod in, and I
hate doing that.
And you're risking shorting a wire or something won't work, which is not good on these ridiculously complicated wiring for these things. So that's kind of why I've waited with Kit. It's just get all the mods together that I want, and then I can build the whole thing pretty much straight through to finished. And I think we're nearly there. I think I've had 90, 94, 95.
There's not many
stages,
left now.
I think.
Yeah, not many left now.
So
I've just attached the rear wings. I think we just got the boot area to do, and then it's just piecing the car together, and that's it then. So
so it's nearly there, but it's a sea of boxes in my workshop. I have no idea where you put them in yours, to be honest. Doing 23 builds, I believe it's up to now, as you pull the trigger on ET.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and do another social media post showing the stack of boxes that I've got now, because it's like a monument. I said on my live stream last night, it's up there with the Empire State Building, the pyramids of Giza.
Is it stable though? Is it Pisa? Is it leading?
It's stable. It's against two walls.
Stable.
So it's in a corner.
Absolutely fine.
But if it falls, then
well, that's the thing. That's what I'm thinking about next, because I've finished the DeLorean, but I've got to display it, and I've got to look for shelving that's going to take the weight.
Yeah.
Because my my standard bookshelves. No chance,
No.
no chance at all. So I have to find something to take the weight of these things, but not just one. There'll be several.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for pretty, I guess, industrial shelving, which doesn't make
Well, the
my
two slot
my sort of
shelving system that I have in the workshop that you see behind
mm,
me when I'm doing my things, they hold loads, absolutely loads. They have to be in the studs of walls though.
absolutely yes. And I think that's the thing. I was looking at you and I thought, they are really flimsy. How on earth is that staying up with the weight? But it's got to be put up
Yeah.
for it correctly, of course.
Yeah.
That's the key. But displaying your models, of course, is something we're going to talk about in a future episode. Regular listeners will know that Agora Models are sponsors of this podcast, but on this occasion, they are giving the space over to two modelling charities who deserve our support. Help Heal Veterans in the US and Models for Heroes in the UK are two charities that offer help for ex-service personnel and military veterans to overcome trauma, both mental and physical, they have suffered through their services. They do this by utilising creativity as a therapy tool, providing model kits to those in need. Making models have been shown to help manage post-traumatic stress syndrome, improve concentration and motor skills. Additionally, utilising model making as an intervention activity increases happiness and social inclusion. Find out more and support them, maybe even donating some unwanted kits, please visit healvets.org in the US or modelsforheroes.org UK in the UK. Many thanks. We've come to the point in the show where we welcome our special guest. Today, we have, I guess, the big scale supremo, James Franks, the CEO of Agora Models. Well, welcome, James.
Hi guys, really glad to be here.
Hi, James.
Well, thanks for joining us, James. We kind of wanted you to sort of get someone on from Agora. I guess because you're making, I guess, waves in the big scale models / partworks, whatever you want to call those. It's kind of a business which has kind of come along, and for me, it's kind of transformed the marketplace, particularly for part workers out there. Before we sort of get into our sort of conversation, sort of about all things part work and big scale model, what's your background, James? What sort of brought you to Agora? Maybe what was your sort of previous life before you got involved with Agora Models?
Well, I started my work life in marketing, and for Carlsberg Brewery, the big boys in a lager in Denmark, and then lived in Burton-on-Trent for work for Allied Brewery, so big background in brewing, really.
Indeed.
Then moved to London and worked in publishing. And then from there, worked for a Norwegian company in gold and silver, and eventually ended up at Agora.
Wow, that's a bit of a segue, isn't it? From brewing into precious metals and then into big scale models. That's an interesting career path there. So what was the attraction for Agora? I mean, you're the CEO, so clearly you have an interest in the subject matter. Or do you see it as a sort of business opportunity, or is model making something that you've been immersed in for a while, but obviously not in your professional life until Agora?
I've always been into modelling. I think I can trace it back to one Christmas. I would have been about 6 or 7 years old, I guess. And for some reason, my parents bought me a big Airfix model kit. It was the D-Day diorama, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
It was kind of,
Wow.
I don't know if they still do it. It was like
They
a
do indeed.
fortress.
Yes.
It was a fortress with like 2 guns in it, and then a small gun emplacement with trenches and like loads of soldiers. I think it was 1/76 scale, probably.
Wow.
And it was great. So there's a bit of model beams. I think there's a couple of tanks or something in there. There's loads of little soldiers. And I just played with that for months and months and months. And that got me into model building. And I think from there, you kind of started buying, or at that age, getting given Airfix and Revell models. I remember a Spitfire, Sherman tank, Leopard tank, even an aircraft carrier. I think I then moved on to making. I tell you what, I really like making the German bombers from World War II for some reason. I think they were really varied. I remember that the Heinkel 111 that had glass in the front. Messerschmitt Night Fighter.
Yeah.
then the Flying Fortress and Lancaster, of course. So it was all those kind of very typical plastic kits. Then when I was about 11, 12, I got a Saturday job. I remember what I used to do every Saturday, I used to do the little job, get paid, and get some cash in a little envelope, get the bus into the town centre to the model store that was there.
Yeah.
And that was great. You don't really get them these days. It's a really
I wish
big
there were more
store.
model shops around now, because you don't see them. You have to go to specific locations to see them, or events like the model show coming up in November. It's sad.
It is, and they're like for little kids. You go into them, and there's remote control planes hanging from the ceiling, remote control buggies. There's wooden kits, plastic kits. I remember just looking at all the plastic kits, and as you go into a record store and you look at all the sleeves of the records, I'd be going to the model store and looking at all the all the pictures on the front. And go, oh, I want that one, and I tend to buy every week just one small kit with the money I had, and maybe one paint, and then gradually I build up a collection of paints and a collection of tiny little models, and then occasionally save up for bigger ones. But yeah, so I got into it at a really early age.
Yes, and I think that mirrors a lot of people's experience of listening to this. Absolutely, that was me. Trooped down to the local model shop, or it was a toy shop with a model area. $1.99 for a kit in a plastic bag, and maybe a couple of pots of Humbrol enamel. And that did me for the week, and that was kind of the mantra for Saturday mornings, and then build the thing on a Sunday or through the week, depending on how complicated it was. So that was kind of your background. So how did Agora come about then? Were you approached? Did you approach? I'm very interested to find out how you then connected with Agora, because obviously they are not in the plastic kit marketplace. They're in quite a different in a different space. They're allied, absolutely, and we've had conversations on this podcast about the connection with plastic kits and the part work world. But for you, did that just come up, or were you even headhunted?
So I think Agora stems for me from two places. One is that childhood kit building upbringing I had. And I think looking back, it's great fun building them, but you just got glue, or I did, got glue everywhere, particularly on the cockpit windows.
I still do, James. I still do.
Painting was terrible. It was really fun to do, but because I only used the colours I actually had, which were not the same as the colours you're supposed to do them. Then, and I remember so it'd have like loads of little tiny soldiers that goes with them, and so all the Germans were painted blue, all the Americans and British were green, and for some reason all the Japanese were painted a sand yellow colour, and everyone had black boots and black weapons, and that was it. So I always kind of loved building the models, but the final item was not so great. I think that's one of the pillars of Agora, was you kind of get a model at the end of it that is really good, the finished item. The other kind of route to Agora is, you probably remember Model Space.
Indeed.
So I actually invented and created Model Space back in 2008, 9. So that was an idea I had, and I worked for a big corporation, and so I didn't have any ownership of Model Space, but they gave me no budget, but said, go for it. So I wrote the website, photographed all the products, wrote everything for the site, and got it going. I did that for 3 or 4 years, but I don't think it was going in the direction I wanted. So I kind of left in about 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of the tying up between my old passion and disasters for modelling and then the model space that I'd created led me in a kind of roundabout way to joining up with Agora.
Well, I find that's an interesting route as well. Also, that idea that with Agora Models that you guys produce. I mean, you mentioned this a lot, haven't you, Wayne? That the thing with the big scale model, with the part work, is you can kind of see what it's going to be. Whereas with a plastic kit, there's some box art and a bunch of parts in a box, and it's that. Oh, am I going to get it as good as the box art? And as you say, James, often unless you have a lot of skill and you're going to put, sometimes decades of practice into your models, probably not. Whereas with a large scale model, of course, that's not the case. You are going to end up with a museum scale, with a museum quality model if you can wield a screwdriver and follow instructions. In its basic form, that's kind of all the skill you need, isn't it?
Exactly. I think that the museum quality is a word and phrase I use a lot online, and that's not marketing speak. It is really my personal aim, because that's what I want. There's no painting, very little gluing, and anyone can build it with a great result. And to me, it's not the fun. It's not actually fun. It's the hobby of building. And as you say, you see images online, you see videos, and you see Wayne building them and other people, and think, well, actually, mine's going to look like that as well, and I'll be proud to put it on my shelf. And when people come around your house and see them, they go, "Wow, where'd you get that?" And you say, "Well, I built it." And I go, "No way."
Yeah.
You know what? For me, the initial draw for partwork models was size and build up models, because you don't see model kits from Revell or Airfix in the sort of sizes that you do get these build up models in. And it's that's what initially drove me. But I've got to ask James, where does the name Agora come from?
Well, Wayne, Claire, she
Yeah.
came up with the idea, and actually, Agora means it's a Greek word, and it's a kind of meeting place and a marketplace. So, in the towns in ancient Greece, in the centre, you'd have this meeting place where people go and talk politics, but also sell things, and that really fitted the ethos of what we are. Because yes, we sell model kits, but also we really like the community aspect of what we do, chatting with people, getting ideas across, seeing what everyone's doing. So it's that community feel as well as selling stuff.
Because it's a very unique name as well. But the other thing to ask with that is, because of the pandemic and COVID hitting, when did actually Agora come up with that first Super Snake model? Because I cannot remember. How long ago was that?
So that was about 3 months before the world shut down.
Wow.
And
Jeez.
it was committed. It was on the boat, going to the various places. And I think that to see if Agora had been doing this product 6 months earlier or 6 months later, it probably wouldn't have happened when it did. But it was committed. It had to go on sale. The pandemic couldn't do anything about it. So it went on sale, and it did really well. And whether that was to do with everyone being at home or not, we'll never know, because Agora wasn't around before then, so there's nothing to measure it against. Who would have known how quickly Agora grew or not?
I think that's right, but I think also you guys came along and you looked at, I guess, the incumbents in the marketplace. So, well, what are they doing not very well, and what can we do that sort of resolves that? This anxiety about, am I going to be able to finish this model? That was a big thing, maybe less than a decade ago. If you were going to start these kind of things, would the company still be around to finish this stuff? And we've had a debacle recently, and that's been resolved, thankfully. But there was that anxiety, wasn't there? But I think Agora came along and said, well, we can remove that anxiety by promising that this will continue. The Agora promise, and that's kind of, I think that's the bedrock of why maybe you guys have been so successful, because you're committed to say it's going to happen. It's a case of, if we announce something, it will complete, and you will have a finished model on your shelf. That's the promise, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we kind of launch products and models that we really want to build ourselves. So I build everything. I've built 3 Jaguars. I built more Jaguar wheels than that, because I get some people, some customers have a bit of difficulty with them. So I build a few, send them out. But so I build everything and love building them. And we don't have accountants breathing down our necks saying, "Oh, you've got to stop publishing that one or whatever because it's not selling very well." We just we have faith in our product. We love them. We commit to manufacture the whole thing, and we launch it. And we sell full packs as soon as we can. We sell them in 12 packs, one a month. So yeah, we just completely love our products and commit to them.
What is the journey of a model then, James? As in, like, from the impetus stage of I'd like to see this as a model, to following it through, to making it, producing it, milling it, getting it, the publishing, and getting it out there. Because I haven't got a clue. We keep asking this in every podcast, even the licensing part. We haven't got a clue about how it gets from just an idea to in someone's house building.
First of all, you've got to come up with the idea, which I think if you took a time machine and went back to my bedroom as a kid and looked at all the posters on the wall, you'd get a good idea of what we've got coming up. James Bond. James Bond, always loved James Bond. And I think, well, I'd so much like to do some James Bond cars. So when there's a license involved, which there's always at least one license. So with the DB5, you have a license with Aston Martin, and then you have a license with Eon. So of course you have to secure those two licenses first, which can take anything from a few months to years, depending on the particular licensor you're talking to. Then once that's in place, you kind of get cracking. And the first stage is to find the real car and 3D scan it. So you have to get access to the actual car. So with the DB5, the Bond one, we have to work with Eon to get the car that's actually in the movie. And there's actually several cars in the movie. With other cars like the Super Snake, there is only one in existence in the world.
I was going to say, they're quite rare.
Wow.
Yeah, and all our cars are quite rare. Even the Cobra, there's only 30 odd of that particular model made. So we have to track down the actual car, and we have to get the owner to allow us to go and scan it. So Shelby were really great. They had this most expensive ever Mustang. They said, yeah, just come and have a look at it, scan it, take photos, do whatever you like. Eon, likewise, they allowed us access to their warehouses to find the cars.
Wow.
So we get a 3D laser scanner, and it's not one of these handheld ones. These are the laser scanners we use are from the medical and aerospace industries. So their resolution is magnitudes higher than the scanners that you would get online. It's thousands and thousands of times. The resolutions we get, it's too much for what we actually need. But we have to go down that level, that route to get the level we require. So the whole car is 3D scanned. And actually, there's some pictures of that on one of our blogs of how that's done.
Yes.
So that creates a computer model of the scanned vehicle. We then have to turn that into a computer model of a 1:8 version, because the 1:8 version is different. Some things don't scale down. A real screw at 1:8 size is going to be minute. And then we have to break it down into parts that are sensible for a model. And that can be then made by the builder. So that takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of skill to turn it into a computer model of a 1:8 model. Then the construction sequence needs to be worked out of, well, how are you actually going to construct this as a customer? Then the next stage is we then have to create the molds. So there are 500-600 parts generally. Each part needs a mold. And you can imagine the molds. So if you imagine like making jelly or Jello for our American listeners, you get a jelly mold, you put jelly in, turn it over, and that's it. The molds we have are utterly different. They're steel. Some of them are 4 foot by 4 foot, way over a ton.
Wow.
And I've seen them making them. They go to like a foundry to be made, and so you cast these big steel molds, and then you get a couple. It's in two parts generally, a top and a bottom. So you close them, and you get guys with sledgehammers whacking the side of it to make them fit properly. It's kind of
Yes.
it's mixing modern computer technology with very traditional skills. And so so we've got all the molds for different materials, of course. So by this point, us and anyone else has spent several hundreds of thousands making all this, and we haven't even made a single part yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
And from that we then make the parts, and they're not big quantities, and there's a lot of hand finishing done. So there's not great economies of scale here. So the parts then come out in either their basic material, so just metal for the bodywork, which is then sprayed, and they're sprayed like a real car. So they have several coats with big sprays, and we use the same paint. There's a lot of investigation in the color of the paint to match the real thing, and to get the finish. And that's really important for me, because that's the kind of thing that I have no chance of doing at home, spray painting anything. So only a few people have the real skill to do that. And then there's a lot of hand painting. So on the gear shift, all the numbers, you've got gear 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all done by hand. The badges, some of the badges are all done by hand. So there's a lot done by hand in the process. Then the whole thing is hand packaged into the packaging and shipped to us.
That's kind of where the cost issue comes in then, because I think a lot of people are on the there's a myth, I guess, that these are factory produced. They're knocked out by the million in some factory in China, and that's it, done. But actually, it's more like a cottage industry, isn't it? Because there's a lot of hand finishing, and that's where the cost is built in, because that's going to cost a lot of money to do several 100,000 of a wing of a DB5, for instance. Whatever it is, that's kind of where the cost filters through, isn't it? Because it kind of is. It's kind of a cottage industry.
It's exactly that. It's not mass production. We're not making
No,
loads of computers
no.
or iPhones or anything where you're
Yeah,
just churning them out.
yeah.
So our economies of scale are not very good, because we are making very small quantities, lots of hand work done, because our quantities are not enormous. It's not worth investing in machinery to make these, because the capital outlay of that would be ridiculous. So
Yes, because
it is a lot.
it's the tooling always, isn't it? I mean, I've seen videos of, I guess the parallel for me would be Bandai kits, the top end Bandai kits. Some of the tooling that they do are huge, and the cost is astronomical. But what you get at the end is this amazingly good, injection molding kit. I know you're not injection molding, but for injection molded kits, they're kind of pinnacle. I would argue, Bandai, the level of engineering which goes into those is just bonkers. You cannot get your head around. But what you get is an amazing kit, and it's kind of the same for you guys, isn't it? The level of, I guess, effort you put into, particularly the tooling, and then the finishing of the parts afterwards. That's why you get a using quality kit at the end, which you and I can build.
Yeah, and it's that we try to replicate the real materials of the real thing. So the seats will be like on the Super Snake. The seats are kind of PVC and are horrible because they're horrible in the real one. And then you get the Jaguar E-type seats are they again were pretty uncomfortable. I sat in the real one. They're not the greatest of seats. But then you've got the Gullwing's got lovely carpets inside, and all the bodywork is metal. So where the real one's metal, ours is metal. We've got rubber tires. So we try to replicate. So which means you need different processes. You need sometimes different factories producing different bits.
Is that a massive decision for you guys then? Do you have kind of, this is what we'd love to do with the model as a list, and then that gets whittled down to what's actually possible in real life? I guess I'm alluding to the machine guns, and so I guess that's where I'm edging to. I'm sort of segueing into that conversation there, James, because clearly you can't do everything, and I've read interviews with other manufacturers saying we'd love to have done that, but we just couldn't do that because the price would be astronomical, and we couldn't pass that on to to the end customer because there is a limit to what what these things can cost. So we'd love to do that, or but we either can't because of the cost issue, or we can't because of an engineering issue. So is there that sweet spot in the middle? You think, yeah, we've scanned it, we'd love to do all of this, but we can't, or at least we can do some of that, but not everything. And is it that you all sit in a room and go, we love to do this, and we have to come up with a list of stuff we can do, and okay, it pains us to do it, but we have to say no to a lot of other stuff as well.
Well, we kind of, I took the decision early on to say all of our products would be the same price. So whether you buy Optimus Prime, the Cobra, the Bismarck, it's the same price. So we have that kind of fixed price that we sell our products to.
Sure.
So then obviously the cost needs to come under that. And we go round. So the DB5, I went with the guy whose job is to actually make the model work. He came with me to photograph. We went to Peterson Museum in California and Bewley Motor Museum in the UK. And when we were in Bewley, the guy there who's on showing the Bond in motion, he said, do you want to see the machine guns working? So yeah, go on. Of course I do.
Go for it, yeah.
So he got it all going, and
wow.
It came out and it started shooting, and there's a video on our site of it, and the lights affect the bullets coming out, and it was brilliant. And I said to Gary, who's with us, I said, we've got to do that. He says, you won't be able to do that because the way the guns come out and the headlights go down is kind of can't really work in real life because there's bits of the real car in the way.
Yes.
And so we always have the people whose job it is to actually make this come alive, and then me, who is kind of saying, I want this, I want that. It's got to do this, got to do that.
Yes.
And and it's always the case that they go away kind of tutting and shaking their head, going, we'll have a look, but I don't think it can work.
Oh, it's
a couple of weeks later,
engineers, honestly,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The same everywhere. A couple of weeks later, you get a message from them. Okay, look, we can do it by doing this, this, and this. And so now we do have the guns coming out and firing just like the real one. And when you see it in real life on our prototype, it's just brilliant. And I think that's the point of why I do this, is because I'm kind of reliving my childhood building and getting things really cool and really good.
We're all doing that, don't you worry.
Yeah, and I'd rather us make less money on the product and spend it on actually getting the guns to work, because we could have just had fixed guns sticking out.
Yes.
And saved ourselves quite a bit of production costs. We wouldn't need the motors and all this. But I'm making these for me, really, at the end of the day. So it's...
That's a very expensive toy shop. Wow.
Well, there you go. So yeah, it's
big boys' toys.
We kind of that's it. Yeah, it's the advantage of going and seeing the real thing as well, and saying, we've got to do that bit, we've got to do that bit.
I take it that every part of this process that we've been going through, do you have to feed back what you've done and what you've done to the license holders? Are they involved throughout the whole build, are they?
Absolutely. So generally they want to see the 3D computer version of what you're going to do.
Sure.
I mean, luckily they'll all be providing us with materials, so the real car, engineering diagrams sometimes. So they give us a lot. They give us all the paint codes and everything. So we then show them the kind of 3D models. We then have to make a prototype, which is very close to the finished thing. And then they kind of sign that off, and then they'll sign off the final production version as it comes off as well. But that's generally a formality, because the people we work with are so good at giving us the information we need to make the model. And to be honest, what we make and any big scale model just looks fantastic for anyone in the license industry. Compared, they'll be comparing ours. They'll be getting T-shirts. They'll be getting mugs from other people, and suddenly they get this great big model that works and
it's a bit different to a
beautiful
mug.
and shiny. They love
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
the license owners are they are really helpful and enthusiastic,
Uh-huh.
and guess what they do. And generally, when they say that bit's not quite right, or that bit needs to kind of
Yes.
be a different color or whatever, it's always useful and constructive,
Yes, the
and
fans
gets us
will
a better
know,
final
James. The fans
model.
will absolutely know if that's not right. I know we shouldn't call them rivet counters, but they are rivet counters. They are, and, but that's fine. I absolutely know because I am a rivet counter. I am. Everybody in this hobby, we've all got a touch of OCD, haven't we? Absolutely, and I make absolutely no excuses for it.
It's also very difficult because a lot of the historical stuff, like the Aston Martin, certain parts of it, if you go and look at an Aston Martin now from mid 60s, some of the parts have actually changed. So, like the oil filters have changed, the air filters, and they'll put a modern version of it on. So you have to research what did it look like in 1963 or
Yes,
whatever.
indeed.
You also, we took our DB5, we showed it to the historian at Aston Martin,
Wow.
and he said, your rubber pipes, they're all black. They were actually originally green. And of course, on all the kind of ones you see now around, they are actually black. So he showed us what the original should look like. So we were able to change them to the correct color.
Amazing.
So we get a lot of feedback from the rivet counters, as you call them. Just for
sorry,
touches.
I know that sounds derogatory, but it's not. For me that's a compliment to detail. The detail
Absolutely.
guys and historical accuracy and on all the rest of it. I think that's kind of what it's.
I do think that one of the big skills when you're doing these models is the just keeping on top of the secrecy of it, because I was at the Peterson around about the same time you were. I'm surprised we didn't bump into each other then. But the other thing is when you did the announcement for the James Bond collection, no one knew. I hadn't got a clue on Christmas Eve when that announcement came up. You had already gone to the recording phase of making this massive advert, which I again didn't know what it was until the final reveal at the end. I don't know if anyone saw that on YouTube on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
What an amazing launch for that product. It was brilliant. But to sit on that and knowing that that's coming out, you must have had a big grin on your face for a long time.
Yeah, we also have to tidy up the office any time somebody comes in to visit us, hide away all the secret stuff.
I bet, yeah.
Well, that's a good point. I did want to ask you that. I mean, now you're established. Agora Models is a force in the industry. Is it that? Are you beating them away with a stick? Because everyone and his dog must want you to make a model of either their car or something from their TV show or their movie or whatever. Is it that? Is it a case of it's really you can kind of pick and choose, or do you still have a sort of hit list which you guys want to go after?
I think it's all of those. We have a hit list. We have all our favourites that we want to do. We I think in the early days, going to see the license guys, you'd have to do a lot of explaining who Agora was. Now people know, so the door's slightly open.
Yeah,
we go to a lot of shows. We have a lot of communication with the community, customers, and we get a lot of ideas coming in. So we take all those seriously, and we're working on a few that are ideas from customers. So it's kind of a bit of everything.
So what do you think? I think since starting building on my channel, I think that was back in 2016, the whole build-up world for all publishers just seems to have gone through the roof. It seems like this whole model has gone tenfold to what it was, say, 10 years ago. Why? What do you think's caused that?
I think, well, us coming on the scene has introduced more choice. So there's more choice, especially in the bigger scale area. I think there's people like yourself and other YouTubers and influencers have been getting more and more views, more and more followers. Been going up and up. I think you've often spoken about the US market.
Yeah.
You've got people like Todd McWilliams at Marvel Phoenix, who I think was your guest last time.
Yeah.
Ian at Pitstone Hobbies, Stephen Katrina at the Maker's Cave, really pushing the big scale side of things and kind of educating people to what these are, how you build them, because it is a relatively new sector. When I was building little plastic kits, these weren't around. So it's kind of an education of what they are, how you build them, what they're like. I think just the whole world has become more online.
To me, it seems like that with these build-up models, when you actually see the finished model, that's the thing to me. Now, with a plastic kit model, you don't see it finished most of the time. You just see it as sprues in a box. But online, to see a finished model and how it looks, and in your promotions of how this is going to look when it's finished, it's not going to be, as you said earlier about your painting's not going to be up to this standard. I think that's what to me made a lot of people put their ears up and say, "Hang on a minute, I can get something that's looking just like that." That's
Well,
that's the biggest thing I had.
the US market's also interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know if my read is correct, but it seemed to be non-existent for these kind of things until relatively recently. Um, that's an odd one because you would have thought that that marketplace would have been ripe for even the guys that came before Agora, but it seems only the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years that the US market seems to have I don't know, is exploded. Is that the right word, or at least it's certainly larger than it used to be. And I think a lot of people want to get into this stuff, maybe because they just couldn't source it. Well, I mean, we're in the UK. We see a lot of stuff in Europe which we'd like to get hold of, and we can't. It just doesn't exist. Excuse me. Or it's going to cost you a fortune to get hold of that stuff into the UK. So often, maybe it's just a logistics thing that if you can't get hold of it for reasonable money, you can't build it, can you?
No, and we kind of ship worldwide, and we have various warehouses around the world. We have an office in Raleigh in North Carolina, which I spend a lot of my time there. We have fulfillment and warehousing in Florida. So we're very focused on the US and the European markets equally. I've actually lived in America. I had an apartment in New York City. I worked in places like Colorado, California, Kentucky. So I have great affinity with the US and kind of understand it a bit more than the average Brit. It's a fantastic country, and the folks in America, they look at things, make decisions differently to how we do in Europe.
Okay.
So I think we can talk to and explain our products differently, and the whole hobby world to the Americans, and I think that's helped grow the market, certainly.
If you are looking to take the detail and accuracy of your models to the next level, Mike Lane Mods has a range of mods and accessories to choose from. Mike is a builder himself. Subscribing to the original Eagle Moss build of the DeLorean, Mike could instantly see where improvements could be made. As other builders started to ask Mike to make the mods for their models, Mike Lane's Mods was born. Mike's creativity, attention to detail and enthusiasm for big scale modelling means each mod is carefully researched and then produced by hand so you can be sure that each mod is perfect. Created with a range of high quality materials, Mike's mods often replace or add essential details to each model he supports across his growing range. Whether you want screen accurate carpets for your DeLorean, a motorised roof box for the Ecto 1 or a fully working electronic dashboard for your K2000 kit, Mike has a mod for your model. Find out how you can enhance your models with Mike's latest mods by visiting mikelanemods.com.
The other thing I wanted to touch on as well, James, is I guess modding, because that's obviously a huge part of this this kind of building. What's your view of that? Do you feel that I guess the modding community, they kind of elevate models, they change models, they do things differently. What's your view on that? Because obviously you guys strive to make the best model you possibly can, and then someone comes along with a mod. What do you think of that? Is that something that that's fantastic because that elevates what we've sort of given people to maybe a next level, or there's more detail that they want to put into that model, and it's absolutely up to them.
I love modding. I think we produce a base model. We get lots of people, especially when we're at shows. They go, "Oh, I love that Cobra. Do you do it in red?"
Right.
I
Sure.
no,
No, we don't.
It's blue because.
Can I have the seats in leather, please? And the
Well, yeah. And you do different engine spec, and we then explain. Well, what we do is we scan one specific car and we make that one specific car identical to that. And obviously, there are loads of versions of Cobras, there are different colours of Corvettes.
Absolutely.
So, I think modding, we supply a model as best we can, and then there are two, as I see it, there are two types of modders. There's the people who do it themselves, and they will they could strip the whole thing down and repaint it in the colour they want. So we've got some people like it's Martin Hughes at Scale War Machines. He's taken our Mustang and he has stripped it down completely and turned it into a barn find. So he's kind of made it all rusty, completely wrecked. And so there's that kind of really high skilled modder who really customizes and personalizes their model. Then there's the other side, which are people like Chloe from Model Mods and Mike Lane, who create extra bits for your model. And that's for people like me who couldn't make a barn find out of a model, but would like to add a bit on.
Yes.
And I think what they offer is fantastic. And there are a lot of people out there who want these extra bits that we can't do because we are doing one basic model that is good for everybody, but some people want to just put that extra little bit on. So I welcome those modders, and I think it widens the community. It gives people something to share online. The photos are fantastic. It gives something for people to talk about, because what we're all doing here is a hobby. It's not building models just for the sake of having a nice model on the shelf. It's the hobby and the involvement, and Agora's just a cog in that whole big community. So modders, great, bring them on.
Well, community, of course, is a big thing. I think with model making in general. I think when I got back into it, I go to my local IPMS group every couple of weeks. It's just a great a great experience to build with other like-minded. I think if you're inside the model community, you kind of understand that. If you're outside, it looks a bit odd, but hey, it's whatever you do and whatever floats your boat. I personally think. We'll be coming to the end of our time, James, for this one. I want to ask you, I guess what's next? What's the future? Obviously, you can't tell us what's under wraps, but where do you see a sort of Agora going in the future?
Yeah, well, of course, it is all top secret.
Absolutely. The bribe didn't arrive then, clearly.
No, sorry. So we're currently launching in Spain and Italy. So what that means is everything will be in Spanish and Italian languages.
Yeah.
So you can buy our models and follow instructions and everything in Spanish, Italian. So that's really interesting for us. So gradually over the next few months, our catalogue will be available in those markets. Of course, our James Bond collection will continue to expand with some more vehicles from the movies. We've got, so next year, we're working on, hopefully next year, we'll be launching a new type of model build to us. What can I say without giving it away? Not much. So it's quite different. It's big scale, obviously. It's
Has it got four wheels?
Making no.
Ooh, no. It hasn't got four wheels. You heard that first, guys. It hasn't got four wheels.
So that will hopefully kind of start previewing that early next year.
Okay.
There's a big anniversary next year. We're doing something really special for. In a way that's not been done before. That will be quite cool. So keep you out for that about halfway through the year.
Okay.
But we're just kind of going around lots of shows and getting ideas of products and reading what everyone tells us to make. So continually bring out new products is the short answer.
Yes, yeah. That list gets longer and longer and longer. I say we're come to our time, unfortunately, James. I'm sure we could speak for a couple of hours, but we have other things to be doing. Well, again, I'd like to thank James for joining us this time on the Scale Model World podcast. So until next time, thanks, James, for joining us.
No problem.
James.
Well, I'd like to thank James for taking the time to speak to us today on this episode of the Scale Model World podcast. Well, we've come to the end, guys. I'm afraid we've run out of time. As I said at the beginning, please do get in touch if you'd like to ask us any questions and any queries. In the next episode, we'll be talking to Lou Dalmalso, who you may know as a sort of modeling supremo, who goes by the name of Aztec Dummy. We had a chat with Lou a while back, and some interesting stuff he's going to impart to us in the next episode. So do make sure you sign up for all notifications wherever you get all your podcasts. So until the next time, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Wayne.
Take care, everyone. See you later. The Scale Model World podcast.